Hail and well met, adventurers. It's me, Darkly, and I'm here to give you a review of the Sword Coast Adventures Guide by Wizards of the Coast. But first, if you do like my content, take a second to hit subscribe or ring the bell below so you can get alerts of my postings. My avatar isn't working real well right now. I'm having all kinds of problems with it, so this is the way we're going to do it this time. So hopefully I get my avatar up and running and we can get that thing looking like it actually works, and then we can go forward with that. Okay. Hopefully you've hit subscribe, rung the bell. Here's my overview. The book is about 160 pages. It's 5 chapters and an appendix. Its production value is beautiful. There's no question. Pictures, text, cover, binding, they're all excellent. All that being said, for a $40 book, in my opinion, the guide fails to deliver what I think it should. Again, there's quite a bit of good content, but overall, I think that its purpose is really confused, and so its content is really very fragmented. It's just not on point. It's not necessarily specific to the Sword Coast. And what I mean by that is that I just don't feel that this book really knows what it wants to be. Is it a game edition for the Sword Coast, or a general game setting for Forgotten Realms in general? In my opinion, this book really should have been 2 books. I think each of them would have been more focused then, and I think each would have been better then. I think Wizards tried to put out a Forgotten Realms source book without having to publish its own book. And so Sword Coast kind of gets short shrift in this hybrid. Both the Sword Coast and the campaign setting in general get short shrift. So real quick, what I don't like and what I like about this book. Chapter 1. It's 42 pages about the realms in general. In my opinion, it takes away from the amount of book that could be directed at the Sword Coast in specific. So it's just too. It really starts off confusing you as to what you're buying. Again, this is really, really generic Forgotten Realms stuff. It actually consists of the history of the Forgotten Realms, the religions of the Forgotten Realms, pages and pages of gods for Faerun in general, and it contains maps of all, or a map of all the lands of Toril. This chapter alone should be expanded into a book of its own for the Forgotten Realms campaign setting. Chapter 2 is really supposed to be Sword Coast in the north. It's a lot of fluff. It's 60 pages of basically first-person narratives that provide color, but a little else. Much of it you can get anywhere from old Forgotten Realms books. It just doesn't feel new. It feels cool, though. It does feel really cool, and it's kind of fun to read. It's each section reads like a little story or a diary entry, but it doesn't, again, in my opinion, give enough credit to objective information about each area to warrant what's sort of being spent on Forgotten Realms in particular. Again, in my opinion, in this section here, should be multiple chapters, 1 chapter for each key region, and expand it. Get rid of chapter 1 and expand this and make it more meaty. And the first-person narrative stuff, I think it's great to give atmosphere and feel, but make that smaller. It really feels like they were trying to build the feeling of a novel or a story, as opposed to giving good gaming information with which you could build campaigns and stuff. There is a lot of information here that you could build hooks and that sort of thing, but it could have been better. It could have been more focused on the game master as opposed to story, creating storytellers to make people feel like they're reading a novel or a story. The part that I'm most disappointed in are the maps. Most are small, not very useful sidebar maps that don't provide much value to the DM and even less to the players. You can get them anywhere from historical books and stuff. I remember the older maps back in the day. The maps were always great. It was like a primary focus of the settings and a primary focus of the books themselves. The maps were really, really designed to help and to provide a lot of information outside of just what's in the text, and add a lot of color to what is in the text and support the text. So a lot of people would just buy the books or buy the box campaign settings or whatever just for the maps, and I don't think anyone is going to buy this thing just for the maps at all. So I don't think they were great. Each area should have had bigger, better maps the DMs can really lean on for adventure design, and they just don't do that. They really don't do that. Chapter 3, Races of the Realms. I'm not going to say much here other than that I love the detail on the races. It does have a lot of information about races for the realms. It has languages for each race and deities for each race and sort of the historical background of the races. It's got really cool example names, just a lot of really, really good stuff. But again, it really should have been in a Realms campaign guide. That would have freed up a lot of room in this regional book to drill down on each of these races even more, as they particularly relate to the Sword Coast and how they interrelate primarily in this region and this area of Faerun and Forgotten Realms. For example, how are elves different around Luskan or Neverwinter Wood, or what are the dwarf clans in all these areas, and how do they interrelate with the other races in detail, and sort of what are the treaties and relationships between all these different groups and the human cities and environments as well. Would have been able to go much, much deeper if the sort of generic race stuff was in a Forgotten Realms campaign setting. Classes. Okay, so there is a lot of information in this book on classes. Lots and lots and lots of good stuff. Some I was a little bit disappointed, but mostly I thought it was great. But again, it was all confused about what it was. Forgotten Realms in general, or is it specific to Sword Coast? There's classes in here from Cormyr and Thay and all over the place. And there's only so much room. So they missed a real opportunity, I think, to have some very specific Sword Coast classes by doing a lot of FR overall stuff. But let me go through some of the classes in a little bit more detail. The first is I really, really liked the Storm Sorcerer in the Sorceress Origins of the Storm Sorcerer. That was very cool. But again, it could be broadly used in any campaign. I'm really thinking that it's going to be great in the Saltmarsh thing that's coming up. The related content around it and the abilities around the Storm Sorcerer are really fantastic. Swashbuckler, I really, really liked. I always envision a Errol Flynn type character, and I think they really do this by putting it in the rogue class. I seem to remember a long time ago it was a variant of the fighter, but now it's rogue, and I think that's really where it belongs. And I really thought that one was cool. The Purple Dragon Knight I thought was cool. Again, it goes back to why are we talking about a Purple Dragon Knight in Sword Coast? That probably should have been in a different campaign or regional setting, but it's a great class. I love the Arcane Domain for clerics. I thought that was a long time in coming. I think any deity of magic, a god or goddess of magic like Mystra or Midnight or whomever from any campaign setting should have always had a arcane domain for his or her clerics. Red Wizards, I thought they were really kind of weak in here. I think that the Red Wizards are so important to this and so specific, not necessarily to Sword Coast in general, although they do a lot there as well. But related to Forgotten Realms in general, I think that the Red Wizards are critical and a big part of it. And I think that they were really given little or no information or expansion here. They could have done more than what they did. They could have created its own class or whatever, but lots there that they could have expanded on. Rangers and Druids were by far my biggest disappointment. I'm not a guy that likes to play Rangers necessarily, but I do believe that Rangers and Druids are very important to the Sword Coast, in particular in the northern reaches and all the forests of the Sword Coast. But then there's some big ones. And these two classes aren't really given much of anything. It's a bunch of fluff, and the Druid circles are kind of informational, and they lean on stuff in previous core rule books or whatever, but not a lot of great expansions of Rangers and Druids, and that was something that I thought it could have expanded on. Barbarians in general, the Battle Rager, the Path of the Totem Warrior, the Primal Path seem okay. I would have liked to have seen more, in particular given how the Uthgardt Barbarians are so important up there, and there's so many dwarven areas with all the different dwarven kingdoms up there, and some have fallen and some haven't, and I thought that the Battle Rager could have been fleshed out, but they are good. I don't want to trash them too much, but really I liked both of those. And then lastly, one of the things that I really liked was the Undying Otherworldly Patron for Warlocks. I don't know why I'm kind of partial to Warlocks, but I thought that this was a long time in coming, that it's a good fit for almost any campaign, whether it's Ayaz at Greyhawk or Vecna or most any other campaign beyond Forgotten Realms. So this is a good patron for any campaign, I think, and I think it is really well done. The monks have a couple of new monastic traditions that I think are good. The Way of the Long Death, which seems like it's a group of crazy serial killers to me, but it's kind of cool. And the Way of the Sun Soul, which is kind of cool if you like monks. So again, there's a lot of good stuff on classes that I think is probably worth the price of the book, but most of them are really generic. They're not focused on on Sword Coast specific, but they're generic Forgotten Realms classes. And I think again, they really missed an opportunity to do a campaign setting that had a lot of this stuff in it, a lot of these generic ones, and then really give some people that want to do specific Sword Coast campaigns the opportunity to dig deeper into some things that are specific to that region. Lastly, the backgrounds I loved. They're excellent. 12 of them from all over the realms. You can use these in all of your adventures. They're adaptable to pretty much any campaign setting, and I think you'll really, really like the backgrounds. I'm not going to go through those in general. I'm not going to go through those in detail. So that's about it. That's my review. In summary, is it worth the $40? Yeah, I think so. But is it what you expect for that $40? Maybe not. It isn't really so much a Sword Coast book as it is a Forgotten Realms setting book with additional detail on the Sword Coast. Do I regret buying it? No way. I love the Forgotten Realms, and I'm glad I bought this book. Would I buy it again? Yeah, I'd buy it again. But I really think they lost an opportunity to turn out two very good books and instead tried to solve two things with one, and I think it feels a little bit confused. So that's it. That's my review. If you like what I did here, let me know by liking the video, and again, don't forget to subscribe, and hopefully you'll see more of my content coming out here in pretty soon.